It's basically enhancement. It can be an enhancement to a Stable 8.4 distribution, so you can have 8.5 installed at the same time, and 8.6 actually, and have all three on this particular machine. And again, available for a whole set of platforms, and all of these platforms are built fully threaded. This is even with the known risks regarding pthread and fork issues. So if you actually use threads and then you try and exec certain things, you can end up hanging. So what are you missing? It's kind of an open question. You can talk about it later in the Q&A, or you can catch me sometime offline. So 8.6. This one didn't fit on the CD because it went into a standard format. It will be on the USB key. It's based on the 8.6b1.1. That is not a typo. That is the version of the core that this is actually based on. Again, in 8.5, Tickle was actually able to get more verbose in its version numbering, and we do use that for interim releases now. And you'll always, we do expose that right to the user so that they know exactly what core build we're working off of. Why is Active Tickle called Beta 2 when it's built on Beta 1.1? Well, because every single release starts with Beta 1, and it's Beta 2, Beta 3, Beta 4, until it's 8.6.0.0. That's because that's what marketing tells me to do. So it has a similar to the Active Tickle 8.5 extension set, although it does have some new core modules in it, like TDBC and TROPS, that are new with 8.6. So when you're a user and you come to find Active Tickle online, this is what you find. You'll see that this is the one-click download that I mentioned. You can see I came to this from my Mac laptop because it's automatically offering that if I go over that Mac OS X Universal, I basically click on that download now. It shows on the page, it knows the platform that I'm on, and offers it up. You see that similar with other common platform downloads. But it's the easy way. You come to the front page, you select Active Tickle, and then you press a button. You have now the Active Tickle download for your machine. There is a little link underneath it for other systems and versions. I took this picture last week, so the current releases are a little out of date. It should be 8.5.7.1, 19.2, and the Beta 2. So, Frank sort of mentioned this in his talk on the download numbers, and I've gotten this question before, so this time I decided to pick out what are our download numbers. So first off, it's a little hard to see, but this is a year 2000 downloads by platform, just raw numbers, and I've got a few others in here. What you have is the blue line at the top is Windows, and no, still not those. The blue line at the top is Windows. The next one down is orange, and that's Linux. Then the one next below that is Mac OS X. And then at the very bottom you have HP, what must be Solaris, HP, and AIX way down at the bottom. So you basically see that the lion's share of what people come to download from us is Windows. Is this a surprise? No. Find a Linux distribution that doesn't actually have Tickle in its, if not installed by default, at least in an RPM or a dev format. I'm not aware of any. And Mac OS X, of course, comes with its own version of Tickle. So for there, the users are generally, they're wanting the consistency in the binary distributions or the newer versions that we provide, because most of the ones provided by the other ones are out of date. So we provide the latest, greatest, and everything else. But on Windows, no one's otherwise giving it to you on Windows. This is actually true for all of our platforms, and is even more skewed for Perl than it is for Python or Tickle. So the next one, this is this little beating heart graph. And it gets a little bit funny because it uses the Google Charts mapping API, and it has to pick like every ninth data point or something to not go over the required amount of data you're allowed to send to Google before they say you're spamming or something. But what you see here is the daily downloads numbers, basically trying to equate to the number above, since this number, this date in the far corner is 2006, so August 2006 to September 23rd, last week. You basically see that, well, actually, it's relatively stable, if not potentially increased a little bit, with a little dip sometime in the summer recently. So over the last 3 years, there are not less people coming and finding active tickle from us, but actually more people. Only slightly more, but it's not dipping. By platform. This basically breaks out and allows you to see it a little bit easier. So that Windows number is almost 78%, Linux at almost 13%, Mac at 6.6%, and just another variation of that below. This is the month-by-month numbers. So you see on average, there is a summer dip. The September number is low because it's not the full month. So it comes out to about 15,000 downloads a month. And by version, I used to ask everybody, what versions are you using? Well, I don't have to ask you anymore because if you're using Active Tickle, I've already got that information. In year 2009, this is the breakdown. Is this actually readable from the back? Maybe. The two large, that's 857, this big chunk. That's 856, this big chunk. And this one over there is actually 86 beta 1, so a lot of people were curious about that. And 8419 over there is actually the third largest one, so people are still coming to find 84, but otherwise the one-click download version, what people come and we say is the one you should download, is the one people are downloading. 856 was the default for a while then when 857 came out, so you can basically see that maybe 60% of the downloads or whatever we say, this is the one you want to download. How does that reflect over all of our statistics? The one since 2006, this is basically related to soon after we checked out from Sophos and got much better statistical information on our own set of websites. 8414 is the largest chunk in there. I would assume that probably relates to our introduction of one-click downloads. Prior to that, you had to come in and make sure you selected whatever it was. And then since then, it's fairly evenly distributed amongst quite a few different versions. So when you have the Active Tickle, you also have the teacup. The Tickle extension architecture. And Teapot is our repository for the T-based extensions. And it is basically a binary code repository. It's like ActivePerl's PPM, for those familiar with it. They leverage off CPAN. Unfortunately, there is no similar CPAN for Tickle, so we have to cobble the sources from all sorts of places. And we're nice enough, if somebody asked, to actually make those available in the Teapot. I'm not sure if you can use the teacup to actually download the source version, can you?
Yeah,
it's just you can. So you have to specify that by architecture source or something.
Yes.
The purpose for that was some people were kind of curious how we got certain things to build when they couldn't get it to build. My recommendation is they just use the Teapot, but we provide the source for them anyway. It makes use of the Tickle module system, which was officially added in 8.5. We backported it for 8.4. And we also allows zip archives. So what it does is it downloads an index, which is an SQLite database, and does local search that way to try and optimize the speed. One interesting feature of it is it's completely integrated with Tickle app package searching in TDK5. That allows us to provide like cross-platform wrapping. So Tickle app, for those who don't know, it allows you to take your script and create a single file executable for deployment to anybody else. Well, so say you're running on Linux and you need to deploy on Windows. You don't even necessarily have a Windows machine available. You just ask Tickleapp, say, I really want a Windows version, and using the teapot, it downloads all the necessary bits, even other binary extensions, even the binary of Tickle, the core itself, and wraps that up for you using the magic of Tickle's virtual file system, and gives you a Windows binary on some other platform. Testing is all up to you. So, anybody guess for exactly how many packages are available in the teapot now? Free license to the dev kit. Anyone gets the number right? Anybody?
500?
No. So
free license if you get the closest.
There are 565 packages currently available in the teapot. These are all binary, ready to use. Well, some of them are pure Tickle, but these are all ready to use packages. Not all of them are necessarily cross-platform. In fact, some of them are like Tickle Carbon integration are specifically only for one platform, but we try and make sure these things work across as many platforms as possible.
Is that distinct packages or distinct versions of packages?
That is distinct packages. If it were by versions of packages, that would be many, because we're not doing much on the pruning side yet. Probably each package would have, on average, 5 versions available to it. So it does keep growing, and I'll keep this one ticking year over year because it doesn't really compare to PPM. For Active Perl, they have 10,000 packages in the PPM archive, and that's not even all of CPAN because a lot of CPAN stuff is old crusty junk that doesn't actually build. They have 10,000 packages that build easily on across a default set of platforms. So we've got a long ways to go, but hopefully we'll get there. So a little bit more about the tools. TDK5, 5.1 was released also yesterday, and basically the key feature in 5.1 over 5.0 was that we completed the 8.6 support because there was bug fixes and other things in there as well, but a lot of 8.6 changes had gone in. For example, the bytecodes are now different in 8.6 than from 8.5. So we had to, one of the tools is a compiler, as I mentioned below, for basically for obfuscating your source code. It doesn't make it any faster. But we now have different variants for 8.4, 8.5, and 8.6. It enhances some of the static syntax analysis, and introduced in 5.0 was the support for the multi-architecture star kits and the cross-platform star packs, which is the single file deployment stuff that I was mentioning before. So you have all the traditional Tickle Pro tools. For those who remember that, we've revamped everything. Basically, none of that original code really exists anymore. There's a debugger for source level debugging with the user interface. The checker, it finds all of your errors without running the application. So this is very important, because especially with dynamic languages. And after Tickleapp, which is this next item, the checker is in both the Tickle Dev Kit and the Perl Dev Kit, is the most commonly sought after feature. Because the problem with dynamic languages is you can have all sorts of errors in your code and not know it, even if you have some level of regression tests, unless your regression tests are absolutely complete. And this thing not only finds errors, since TDK5, it will find errors and recommend the alternate way to actually write your code. Tickleapp, I mentioned before, compiler is really, again, just for obfuscation. And so a lot of enhanced UIs for using these. The star kits and virtual file system technology is available for anyone. It's all open source. but the user interface is ideally supposed to make it easier to build some things. Other additional tools are coverage, standard coverage hotspot analysis, managers for Tickle services, which we finally fixed in TDK5 to actually work with multiple threads as well. Tickle app, again, was rewritten basically to use virtual file systems to start StarKit architecture. Inspector, for those who were in my tutorial yesterday's, or the TKCon free tutorial last night, saw the inspector running. It's just basically for UI debugging, and it's a very helpful tool in that sense. And some other tools that basically allow more examination of your code. Why do we do all these? Well, because somebody's interested in them, somebody wants to pay for them, but you find these tools by the gazillion for Java, C, C#. Microsoft provides them all for you. We're trying to provide them all for those who are really doing their development on dynamic languages to make sure that that experience is just as good as it is on any of the systems languages.
Yeah. Do the debugger and coverage tool and so on understand SNIT syntax yet?
The debugger understands SNIT syntax, and it also, is that new in 5.0 or in 5.1, Andreas? The debugger understanding SNIT syntax?
That should be 5.0, yes.
And I think it also understands OO syntax, but not for debugging, just for
checking, yes.
Syntax checking.
Very good.
Komodo 5, that's the IDE. It focuses on all of the dynamic languages. It really is an award-winning IDE for dynamic languages, very popular amongst the PHP, Ruby, Python crowds as well. Basically, there isn't any comparable editor for Tickle and Perl for sure. There are some more in the Python space, and PHP has quite a ton. But Komodo is one of the most popular. We get to leverage a lot of the features that it builds in for Tickle as well. It does have unique Tickle editing features in it. It's cross-platform, so it's great to give it a try. There is also the Komodo Edit, which is an open source version and free version of Komodo IDE. It just lacks some of the IDE integrated functionality. For example, it doesn't have the debugger or source code control integration, but it does have all of the basic editing features, method tooltips, and lots of other information like that. It's just released 5.2, and new in 5.x, they added support for a lot more of all the distributed version control systems, well, the popular ones anyway. More code formatting tool hooks. You get multiple top-level windows. Brand new in 5.2 is a TDK toolbar. So for those of you who are actually use TDK and Komodo together, there's more integration with that. And that's those are the little green icons at the very far side of the toolbar at the top. So here it is, trying to construct some set of Tickle code showing various features that are available and the integration with TickleDevKit. So, Active Tickle Pro Studio, it's basically all of those products bundled together with the Safari bookshelf of online books, which does have popular Tickle titles available. I'd be curious if those book sales metrics account for those people that use the online bookshelves. For those who don't mind reading online, you don't need to be buying Pro Studio. You can go to O'Reilly and get a subscription by itself. But I'm rather impressed. It's not just O'Reilly books. Theirs is just an interface. They do have like Prentice Hall technical titles and other things as well. And you kind of get to swap out what's in your bookshelf. It's great online reference material. It is a bit of a game changer. Maybe Google would do something completely different, but it is kind of unique at the moment. For those who actually aren't users and might be interested, there is a special discount for my speaking day only, literally for today only. If you were interested in buying, it's $100 off. That is actually 1/3 off of the usual price of TickleDevKit, and 25% of ActiveTickle Pro Studio. And so if you want a copy, you're probably not going to get a better deal for another year. So back off of ActiveState and on the open community work. The Developer Exchange. This is www.tickle.tk, aka tickle@activestate.com. That's only backup DNS because the .tk domain drops out of DNS existence every once in a while. It is the official homepage for Tickle and TK. It's more static than things like the wiki and such, but prevents like the formal front end for people to come and see what is the latest version, where do I download it from, give me the news. We put it hosts, for example. Everyone probably must have gone there to be able to register for the conference. Downloads basic advocacy history on the language and such. Then there's the Ticklers Wiki. And this I thought was a good point after Frank's discussion that there's actually over 24,000 pages in the wiki. It's about 24,400. Wiki.tickle.tk. It has grown by 2,000 pages in the last year. So if you want to know where the book for Tickle is, that's pretty much it. Now, I do recommend actually getting one of the more recent books as well, because they provide great references and are much more structured. Sometimes the wiki can be quite frustrating, but the wiki is also super fresh. And when you grow 2,000 pages in a year, there's obviously a lot of information. Even if half of those pages were simple, empty references to other pages, that's 1,000 pages worth of information. The Tickle URL continues to provide weekly news, but I'm not sure I've seen it in the last couple of weeks. Is it, it's been out?
I haven't had time to write the wiki summary, so...
So it's your fault.
It's my fault, yes.
It is still pretty much going weekly. It gets published weekly to the Compline Tickle news group, which I might add is still a very good place for asking questions, unlike many of the other news groups. And you can just subscribe to Tickle-Announce at listserv.activestate.com. Very low volume. I don't think you say much on that list aside from sending Tickle URLs. Probably should be sending out our release announcements sometime this week. So what else about development online? So that's where you go when you want to learn more of the general information. Now, if you're trying to get to the bug and patch databases and other things, those all still exist at SourceForge. There's the URL. That hosts our web database, the mailing lists, those that aren't hosted at ActiveState, CVS repositories. Yes, we're still on CVS. Yes, I'd love to get off. File server, it has all the tickle sources back to version 2.1. Unfortunately, we asked John, he couldn't figure out where to get the tapes that would have earlier versions. And it has a lot of developer-oriented web pages. Both of these sites are actually managed by the Tickle Core team and the Tickle TK maintainers. And SourceForge itself is used by many of the other Tickle TK extensions and applications, although you will find Codeplex, GitHub, and other sites being used a little bit more now. So here's a little snapshot, recent snapshot of Developer Exchange. You basically see there's the conference news, there's the software release information. It's all front and center basic information to try and provide a little advocacy and provide the most relevant news for users. The wiki itself, the front page hasn't actually changed much year to year. There is a mention of the conference up there, but this is actually a clickable graphic over here and kind of gets you a little bit in a mind map style getting around the start of the wiki. SourceForge, page doesn't change much and kind of gives a really raw view of just the developer interface for it. So, now getting down to the nitty-gritty of the core stuff. 8.4 was released in April of 2008, so that is a year and a half ago. It is essentially at the end of its development life. There is a plan to make an 8.4 just because there have been some changes, some of them relevant crashing bugs, and we want to support that at least till 8.6.0 comes out. But at that point, from the community perspective, it will be considered end of life. So you should be using 8.5, as most people are. Several core feature enhancements were introduced. I just have one page here for 8.4. The virtual file system, that was where it was first introduced, so that's 7 years old now. A lot of the list commands, other updates to many of the other commands. It improved 64-bit integers, wide integers throughout the file system was added in 8.4, and some stuff for TK as well. There was a lot of work done on performance. This was basically done by byte coding more commands. And it got a 20%, a bigger performance improvement over 8.3. So between 8.0 and 8.4, 8.0, which was considered rather fast at the time, but now now you have something that was fully Unicode aware and thread safe, and just as fast as the original 8.0. So and some core widgets and enhancements were in there. So to 8.5. Okay, so between Alpha 1, March 2004, and 8.5.0 was almost 4 years. We are currently at 8.5.7. That was released this year in April, and in 8.5.8, it's probably around the corner. I'll mention a couple of the changes that will be going into it. Notable as you can find, 8.5.7 is now the default in OS X 10.6 Snow Leopard. Came out last month. So that would be actually the most recent up-to-date distribution, particularly coming from a big commercial entity, is rather impressive. Although I think some of the Linux guys are following up pretty quick now. So 8.5 is 99.99% backwards compatible. There are a couple of tiny changes things that were they were error cases before, and they're different error cases now. If you happen to rely on exactly error formatting, then you might get busted, but we don't consider that really a compatibility change. But notable is that bytecodes changed, and that did bite some people on version compatibility issues that are dealing with things at that lower level. All in all, there were over 100 tipped features in 8.5. So almost 4 years of development, 100 unique or different features that went into 8.5. And available now is the new, Chris Book, are you updated for 8.5 as well?
No.
No.
I'm hoping to get a new edition out and updated to 8.6.
Okay. So that's going to play leapfrog. But for 8.5 right now, just recently made available, in fact, just this month, I think, from Ken Jones with is John Osterhout's original seminal book on Tickle and the TK Toolkit, and it is fully updated for 8.5. I think it even has a tiny little addendum on some of the 8.6 features. Is it? Did stick that in? Okay, so it is. It just does focus on the wealth of stuff that was added to 8.5. Obviously, with over 100 tip features, that's quite a few.
Keep in mind that first edition covered Tickle 7.3 and TK 4.2. So a lot there. It's premature either.
And for the record, we have the book available for sale here.
Yeah, and the book is available for sale for those who are interested. If you get it here, I can sign it for you. So, I've got 10 slides on 8.5. I'm going to spin through these ones really quick. I was going to actually remove them, but then at least in my tutorial yesterday, there were still a lot of people not on 8.5, so I thought they might be relevant. I'm not going to read through each individual point on these, but you can get a little overview of some of the 100 new features that went into 8.5, because I wanted to spend more time with what's in 8.6. So the and the name people gave to this particular operator, Makes me chuckle every time. I won't repeat it, but the expansion operator is that is the star in braces, and there's no spacing or other thing. That's just the font shows the font spacing. So that's just the star in braces. It allows you to get around all the uses, probably 99% of your evals that you have in your code, and it will make your coding much safer to be using in the future. So since everybody, since 80% of the people here are already using A5, do make use of this operator, and anytime you find an eval, replace it so you don't get bit by the bug that inevitably is in that piece of code later. The dict data structure was added in A5, and it has some enhancements in A6. Major changes to A5 in the area of expressions. You got a whole bunch of new operators, exponentiation, min-max, square root, entière, in, and ni, my favorite one. It replaces a lot of the, basically all of the L search. There's a whole bunch of L search that not equal to -1. Some people forgot to remember that it's -1. That would be, it doesn't be in the list, and so in and ni are much easier to use there. Some stuff with namespaces, and there is no more integer overflow because of big nums. This actually might catch a few people in weird corner cases that kind of relied on things overflowing, but that's really weird. So also big nums were introduced, which is a big thing. That is hopefully the right answer. Kevin has assured me that that's the right answer to that question. There's ongoing work on performance. I don't think it's really active now, but if you find an area that seems a lot slower than before, we are sensitive to trying to make it work better. So you note that they're in all of the expressions, but not in the 32. Most of the other things like string, index, lindex, and L-search, and a lot of that other stuff is still restricted to 32-bit values. So there's a lot of enhancements to list operations, improved syntax, makes certain things easier.